Like I'm
That's
so
one of the few people that can make you awestruck, kind of thing.
absolutely. Yeah, because he's so um he's come so far. You know what I mean? Like and that's what he talks about in the book that I um was reading the other night. The Gift of Fear. I mean, the Gift of Fear should be required reading for everyone. It really should.
You're gonna
Have
have
you
to
read
tell
it?
me more about that book. No, I have
Okay,
never.
so
I never heard about it
basically,
before I read your article.
okay, so Gavin DeBecker, he does personal security. Okay, like he's been a consultant to the president. He's like any uh wealthy individual who's being blackmailed, shit like that. When you have stalkers, celebrity stalkers, things of that nature, they
Yep.
call Gavin. Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Wow.
what he does is he assesses the danger level. Okay. Is this person going to come forth with your secrets? Do you need to pay them? Is this person really going to, do what they said and shoot you when you know what I mean? So
Right.
that's what he makes his living on. And
He verifies all that, is what you're saying.
absolutely. Well, he'll do a threat assessment.
Yeah.
Okay. And just basically let you know, yeah, you need to give them the mill or call the people that you don't want to know the secret, tell them and get this dude out of your life. You know what I mean? Basically.
Yep.
But his whole,
He can't quite tell him to say that, but he's basically implying that is what you're trying to say.
you got it. So and what he'll do, like there's a one of the first chapters in the book, he's dealing with a woman who was a rape victim. Okay. And one of the other victims was murdered by the rapist. Okay. And the woman who survived was a therapist before this happened. Okay.
I think I know
And
this.
he's walking her through it and he's saying, how was it that you knew that you had to get up and leave at that moment? Okay. Well, the rapist had shut the window. Okay. And then said, you don't have to worry. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to go into the kitchen and get something to drink. Well, somehow the woman knows at this moment, if I do not get up out of this bed,
It's her opportunity.
it's my life. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Without knowing, right. Without knowing the man had murdered the other victim, whatever. So as she's leaving out of the apartment, and she butt ass naked walks out, okay. So as she's leaving the apartment, she hears him in the kitchen opening drawers. Okay. So Gavin is asking her, what was it that let you know at that moment, that you had to leave? Okay. And she's like, well, why did he shut the window? If all he's doing is getting something to drink and leaving, why is he? I knew he was in the drawers looking for a knife. He was going to come back and you know what I mean? So that's what he does is, but he comes from a tragic ass background. His mother, bipolar, institutionalized several times. One of the other first chapters in the book, she's shooting one of her husbands. Okay. And he talks about how that's how he got into threat assessment, because obviously, he had some threats to assess at home, so Mark is the same way. And that's what he was talking about with Mark, because Mark comes from domestic violence. His stepfather was a very violent man who beat on his mother for years. Okay.
And that's one of those stereotypes that kind of pretty much holds true, I think.
Correct. Yeah. So Mark, of course, ends up a sergeant with the I wanted to say, what is it, Memphis or Nashville Police Department, and then goes on to accept the role as the the guru of domestic violence law enforcement training. Okay. Which I told you I've taken all his classes. He's the bee's knees. Okay. Like seriously, I just love him. So actually it looks like there's a message on here about one of the Ohio domestic violence network. Yeah.
Really?
I'm about to read it. I'm going to read it. But anyway, so it's it's a big deal to him. The story that he tells in Gavin's book is about how he and his little brother, they were like 8 and 9 years old, and they tried to poison his stepfather with bug spray and poured it all in his wine
yeah.
that he was drinking,
I
and
remember
then
seeing people. Yeah.
sat there and waited for him to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To kick over, and that's so sad to me, that, they're kids. Clearly they don't, you know what I mean? But he took that memory and he let it make him into who he is today, which, I mean, if you see him in these videos, like this is why I am as fangirl as I am over him, because he is so, he's so on the side of these survivors, and he's dealing with, of course, the typical law enforcement reaction, which is, why do they keep going back? I'm tired of going to the same house. I'm tired of risking my life for this woman who's not going to stay gone, whatever.
I can see that. I can totally see that.
Oh God, yeah. And I mean, it's openly in the videos. These cops are in the Q&A sessions, asking this. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. So I was going to say, so that was something I had to learn about myself.
Mm-hmm.
When you go through some tough things sometimes, I think it makes you either identify with the other people who may go through other tough things too. But sometimes what that does, and it did it to me, and perhaps these guys are going through this too, it's what I found is that what it did was it actually reset the bar for me for what is tough and what's horrible. So that anybody that experienced anything that was less horrible than what I'd experienced, there's no way I could actually, I couldn't empathize. I'd be like, well,
Right.
I just don't get it. Like, why are you?
I understand that, Benny, and
I had to
I've
get over
told you my story. Yeah, I've told you my story. I mean, not only was he trying to leave me for dead, the son of a bitch kicked me in the head to make sure I was dead. So we're when I hear these women talking about, oh well, he won't give me $15 to go and get my nail polish changed. Bitch, shut up, okay? And I want to say these things, yet the other part of me knows that financial abuse is a serious situation, and I should not downplay another woman's situation just because it's not as serious as mine. But then on the other hand, a part of me wants to smack the shit out of somebody, and yeah.
Yeah, no.
Go
well,
ahead.
I'll let you finish and then, okay, because I had a thought on that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't know if you ever heard of a guy named Jocko Willink.
No.
You have?
No.
Okay, so he's a former Navy SEAL. In fact, he actually led a team, and I believe it was SEAL Team 6, actually, which is the more infamous one.
Well, I can't believe I've not heard of him. Then my affinity for the military.
I know. But this dude, like, we've had conversations, right? And so this guy kind of, I think, encapsulates more of what we were talking about than perhaps even I do. And so he wrote a book, and he was basically, the book was Extreme Ownership. And the idea was, no matter what in life, right? Like, always look at it from the standpoint that, like, okay, how could I have done better? Because he goes, the reason you do that is not to take the blame from anybody else. The reason you do that is because if it's somebody else's fault, then you can't do anything about it.
Right.
But if you put some of it on you, then you could actually change it, right?
You can own it, yeah.
You can actually own it, and then you can change it, right? So that he was saying the one time he actually wrote a book for his son, and it's called Mikey and the Dragon. So he's actually kind of this father-son type-esque, like, boy coming of age book. It's kind of cool. I got it for my son Elliot, and he also said this one time. He goes, well, it was actually his daughter. I believe. And he said the one time she just got so frustrated because she was tying her shoes or something. And I just got so, like, I just couldn't, like, why are you getting so upset about it? It's just shoes. And what he talked about was, he was like, look, to them, it's like the end of the world, right? Like, she's like 6, right? 5 or whatever, right? Like, it's the end of the world for her, right? And to him, he goes, like, that's the equivalent of me being in Iraq when crap was happening. Like, but to her, that's the way it feels. Even if it's not nearly that bad, she doesn't know any different. Up until this point, she hasn't experienced anything that frustrating. So now it's like, whoa, right?
Yeah, it's full on for her at that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, that opened my eyes up a lot, because I'm like, okay. And that helped me empathize with people who, like, okay, friends, like I told you, I wrestled with a dislocated ankle and a broken hand at the same time, and 2 separated shoulders, right? So people come up to me, hey man, I sprained this, or I did that, or I twisted that, or I bent my finger back, and I'm like, why are you telling me?
Yeah,
Like, why is that?
you know what? Go home.
Right,
There.
like you're kind of being a
Okay,
fan.
I need you to.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And then but then because it hit me, and I went, this is such a big deal to them because they've never had that happen before. So it's the first time. So it's a big deal to them.
Of course.
And that helped me. And that helped me bring it all the way back down. I went, no.
And you know what? That's a really good point, Benny. Actually, it really is. You know, because I know that you're aware. You know, I hang out in the abusive relationship threads. You know, it's my it's where
God
I
bless
troll.
you.
It's where I troll. You know, so I
God bless you.
as sad as that sounds. So I you know, but my thing is, you know, I could be there, not cheering these women on. You know, I could be there with my, you know, whatever. It's not that bad scenario.
Sure,
you know?
yeah, because you could easily compare all those stories to your situation and go,
I
literally almost died, and you're complaining
and you're sitting here bitching about, like, okay,
oh, he yelled at me,
or whatever, you know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But you know, it's not, that's not helping anyone,
right.
You know. So
and maybe they've never experienced that before. Maybe they actually like legit had a good dad and a good relationship with their brother, and they like, for whatever reason, like they've never
seen it. Yeah, they've not seen it. So they're freaking out because the dude throws the game controller and whatever and is screaming in her face. And you know, so I have to
breaks
have
the TV screen with the remote because he's pissed. His team didn't
win. I have to have the you know, the ability to separate these women from myself, you know, and look at it in a light that may not necessarily be the one that I would look at any other scenario in. You know, I have to look at it like it's my first time too, you know. So that's
good. That's really good.
Yeah, so that's what he's coaching these cops to look for. You know, hey, look, check this out. You know, it's not, even if you've been there 50 times this week, you know, you need to remember that every time is going to feel like this to this woman because her life is in danger. You know, her kids' lives are in danger. Men too. Yeah, I mean, you know, so he's very inclusive. He's very, you know, Mark is a very progressive man as far as the movement goes. You know, and as I said, you know, he's very I fangirl. I mean, come on, you know, he's got his shit together because if there was a hole to find, I'd find it, you know. But
how you doing, sir?
Exactly, you know, but he's very like right now I'm looking at his website and what he has is it's a threat assessment. The Violence Against Women Agency checklist. Okay, so basically it goes through and it asks these questions of these cops. Are you guys doing this shit for these women when you're called out, and these men when you're called out to these domestic violence situations? I mean, he's so on point with it. Like he's just like, you know, do y'all demonstrate a commitment to properly addressing all the crimes of, you know, violence against women and children, and you know, and you know, whatever. And then they go through, and I mean, it's a checklist, it's a threat assessment, you know, and I like that so much because it's so comparable to, you know, Gavin DeBecker's book, which is very popular.
Well, I think what his book, like from based on, I don't know the book, I didn't read the book, but you shared whatever information you shared for me, I tend to, you know, connect those dots. But it seems to me that his book isn't so much, what it comes across to me is, hold on, let me gather my thought here.
I've got you.
Remind me. So, okay. Yeah. So it's almost as if this idea that, that they have to train for the first time, whatever is like it's almost like this new concept. And I don't think, like, I think the point of the book is actually just basically kind of pointing you towards common sense.
Right, exactly. And
it's like it should be obvious.
Learning your own emotions, listening to your inner voice is what it is, you know, because women are taught, here's what we're taught, okay? It's called women's intuition for a reason, okay? And yet we're told to shove that voice down every single day. Not everyone's a rapist. This guy isn't following me. He's not a stalker. Guess what, baby? He might be a stalker, you know? And if you feel uncomfortable getting into an elevator with a dude, wait wait for the next one. Okay. That 3 minutes is not going to change your life if you don't get in, but it might if you do, you know? And so
Well,
that's
yeah,
basically,
no,
you know,
every
that's
second
basically
counts, man.
exactly. And the same applies to Leo training as far as domestic violence, because you've got to remember that it might be the time that they respond where that husband shoots everyone, okay, including the cop that comes out. You know, so you have to, when they're training in this, you know, that's their point, you know, it's my life I'm out here risking. And I understand that, Benny, because I'm on that end now, you know.
Well, plus you also been through some of that stuff. So,
Exactly.
you know, can I share with you a little bit on the other side of it, like the guy side?
Sure. Go ahead.
So, well, you know the kind of guy I am, and I only just basically associate with basically other guys kind of like me, right?
Right.
Because I've
You're not out here
learned.
hanging out with wife beaters.
No, oh no, not at all.
I
Like
hear
they,
you.
well, because that would probably be the last time that would happen if I hung out with a person like that, right?
And that's why
Well,
I adore you right there.
yeah, no. So because they might have to be horizontal for a while, if you know what I mean. You know, like in a bed
You're gonna put those
with a few
put those
tubes.
college wrestling moves to use. That's what you're telling me.
Yeah, like there might be a few tubes hooked up, all that, you know, for a bit, and then I would never, you know, I don't want to say, look, so and this is where the bleeding heart comes in, because this is where my heart goes. Nobody's a lost cause, and that's what it's gotten me into trouble, because that's where I come at things, right? Like nobody is a lost. Anybody could be saved, and I know that's
Loyalty
not.
has done me a huge disservice as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. So so the thing is my personality is I might beat the hell out of that guy,
Mhm.
but I would probably, like, once he recovered, go back and try to talk to him.
Right.
I know that
Send him to your dad for counseling. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that, because I have, and look, the only reason is because I had a friend in high school who became abusive in a relationship, and he just turned kind of into sort of a monster, and then became suicidal, because the girl was like, she did have enough of a backbone. She had enough oomph in her, you know, like chutzpah, right?
Yeah.
That's what we say up here. It's like a Jewish word.
Yeah, I get that.
You had enough chutzpah to, like,
before,
you know,
okay.
like, or chutzpah, right? Like she had enough to go, I'm done, right? And she left.
Right.
And so that actually became my wife, by the way.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But so I get a call from this guy's mom. He's actually an adult, but mom's worried. That's how moms are. And she's like, I haven't found. So I'm not going to say his name, but his real name, but I'll say, and the reason I'm trying to protect him is because of what I'm trying to say next.
Sure.
We'll call him, we'll call him, Greg. And so that's not his name, but so Greg.
Well, we're into pseudonyms today. So, you know.
Yeah. So Greg, so I finally find Greg walking down the highway. His plan was to go to this woman's house, is basically his ex-girlfriend at the time, and to hide out in her garage and wait for her parents to leave so he could talk to her.
Wow.
Well, so that we knew that was like a disaster.
Yeah.
So I saw him on the side of the highway walking. And because there's only two routes to get to her house, because again, remember, basically she, again, 2-3 years after that became my wife. And so I knew where she lived. And so I'm like, there's only two ways to get there. And I actually at first thought he would take the route with stores and restaurants, whatever. It's January, it's cold. Mm-hmm. And I thought he would pick that route because he could go in and warm up and then come back out and keep walking. No, he chose the highway like a ding dong. And like where there's nowhere to warm up.
Like he's in a mental break. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Like didn't care. Right. Left this like horrible, ambiguously depressed end of the world note, but didn't say he was going to actually take his own life. He just,
oh my God.
Just basically alluded to it throughout the whole thing. That's what freaked mom out, because he left it for his parents.
Sure.
And which is a little, but he wasn't in his right mind. And so I saw him and I was like, I pulled up and I was like, you need to get in the van right now.
Right.
Like, right now, dude. Well, I mean, we knew each other. We were buddies.
Right.
And I just didn't know he had that capacity. I didn't even know that about him. Right. Because like, obviously I wouldn't know that about him, right? I'm I'm a guy friend and I'm older too, by the way.
Right.
And but there was no question. And he knew, like, I gave him that look like I promise you I will knock you out cold and throw your body in my van.
Absolutely.
If you don't get in the van.
Yeah.
And so he got in all sheepishly, kind of like, all right. And, gets in the van. And I took him back to my buddy Josh's house. I'm actually going to hang out with him tomorrow. And Josh took all the knives, anything sharp, anything remotely that could be used as a weapon. He like totally took out and hid, whatever. And then my buddy Jimmy came over, and so Jimmy slept in front of the door. So Greg's not.
So y'all are tag team in this scenario. Okay.
We had it all down. So I'm sleeping in the living room. Greg's sleeping on the floor in the living room. Josh is in the bedroom, his own bedroom. It's his apartment after all. And then our buddy Jimmy is up against the door, like so, and you have to open it this way. So if he sleeps up against it, you can't open it, right? That was the point. So even if it was unlocked, because he can unlock it from the inside.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
But if he tries to get out, the whole point was then it would wake him up, and then Jimmy would stop him, right? And because we're not letting this dude leave.
Right.
And then here's what we did. Then we had him admitted for 72 hours.
They racked that ass. Put him in that's called a Jello vacation. It's also known as a pajama party vacation. It's also known as.
No, I'm familiar. You remember the guy with mom?
Yeah.
Mom's the way she is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So,
but we didn't do that because I legitimately thought that he was going to go in and get all fixed up. I did it because that bought us enough time to figure crap out. That's why I did it. Wasn't even like, I'm not an idiot. I know that short-term crap like that never works.
Right. Exactly.
But for people to actually get the help they need, like that's months, if not a year, maybe or more. Right. So I know 72 hours is nothing.
Already a little bit of time. Yeah. So
72 hours is nothing.
Right.
So we had him, so that way we could buy time. So we spread the word out among everybody that knew him and knew us, right? Everybody knows now. And because it sucks. And I know that he probably ended up resenting us for a little bit for that. But the reason we did that was for what we did next. We basically all put a pact together as guy buddies. And we said, look, dude, if you don't get your crap together, we're not talking to you again. Like, when we're not going to talk to you until you do it. It took 6 months, and I can't tell you how many vitriolic texts I got from the guy. And it was all about how, and basically every single text was, it was my fault, our fault. He didn't want to take responsibility. We literally just ignored it, never replied. Nobody did.
Yeah.
And then he goes and admits himself. He finally goes and admits himself. And he's in there for, I think he's in there for 6 months. He gets diagnosed as bipolar.
Oh, dude.
Big shock. And which, by the way, that was the moment that I started to listen to I had so much more respect for my dad because he was a trained counselor, but I was in college, so I thought I knew everything. And
no, I can't imagine you thinking that you know everything. Didn't even that makes no sense.
Oh, well, the 35-year-old version of me knows that's definitely not true.
Okay.
But the 19-year-old version, 20-year-old version definitely thought.
Again, I can't imagine.
And my dad so Greg came over the house to hang out one day. This is way before all that crap. And my dad looks at me and goes, okay, Greg's bipolar. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, he was like, you only saw him for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But my dad has been counselor for like 25 years at that point, 25 years. So I should have known, like, I was an idiot. He was so right. I mean, because then he goes and he goes and admits himself, but he stays for 6 months. So that's not 72 hours. That's where stuff can actually happen.
That's you're working through some shit there,
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So he does get diagnosed, and I'm like, oh, dad was right. I was wrong again. So, all right, that was a humbling moment, right? But the other thing that did for me was it made me realize, like, maybe people in that environment, the abusive. So he never hit her, but he got super close, like punching holes through the walls, like next to her head, kind of thing. He did everything but that,
which we know are huge red flags.
Right.
I preach over and over again to these young ladies.
And she was freaked out.
I say young ladies, but it's not necessarily always young ladies. It's
Sure.
there are lots of people who are in, new relationships at whatever point in their life, and are running across things like this. And here's a question I get all the time, Benny. It is this abuse?
Sure.
Okay.
I
And
questioned
whatever
that before I emailed you my story.
sure. Yeah. Whatever these
Again,
specific,
because of the size difference and all that other stuff, I was like, well, because it doesn't hurt as bad as if I would
I
have
get that.
reversed.
I,
And I
I
was
get
like, well, it's
that.
no big deal then, right? Because I'm like, whatever. And then I felt
Exactly.
shame was in there, because I'm
I
like,
know.
well, why do I feel
I
bad?
totally understand. And we've talked, about, your situation being different, obviously, because you're a man, however, at the end of the day, if I don't know who it is that's asking me the question, I'm going to answer it the same way. Okay. And I told you specifically,
No
that's
excuse.
abuse.
Yeah.
Don't put up with it. Don't ever go back, because that's not healthy,
Yeah.
but more often than not, it always starts with well, he punched a hole in the wall by my head. He threw something and it landed right by my head. Honey, can I tell you how many times?
TV screen. Yeah.
Right. The sorry son of a bitch who, did all that shit to me used to turn the kitchen sprayer on and spray me like a fucking dog in the yard. Okay. Like inside the house. Yeah. Oh, Benny. Benny.
Well, like the
No,
sprayer for the dishes.
no one
Like you just turned
understand.
it on.
Oh yes, honey. Oh yes. No one understand the shit that this man put me through. Okay. On top of the other things that about that situation. Okay. So the fact that that I
I'm sorry
could
to hear
not
that.
leave, like, you know what I'm saying? And I've told you many times,
Yeah.
what was behind that. And that's why, when I do Abby's Village, this is the type of shit that I plan to get right here at this point where he's spraying you with the kitchen sprayer. You know what I mean?
You
We
gotta
don't
stop
want
it
it
then.
to get,
Yeah.
we don't want it to get to, this
Kicking you in the
other
head.
point.
Yeah.
Exactly. I want to be able to get that shit before it ever gets to this point,
The
because
problem is that during that point, and you probably did this too, right? Like they have not recognized
he's going to kill me if I don't leave.
right. They just
Yeah.
think, okay, well, he hasn't hit me yet, so
Right. And
whatever.
that's where we need to start the education. This here, these red flags, this shit I'm over here calling a red flag every day, this shit that I'm explaining, yes, is abuse, every single day of my adult life,
Yeah.
then this is what you need to be looking for. I'm not looking for a bitch with a black eye. Okay. That by that point, she's way the hell in it. Okay. I want to catch her over here.
Can I ask you something about that?
Sure.
Can I ask you about that? When they get when women get to that point and you find them then, what is the chances that they come out of that?
Okay. So if she has kids, not good.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Chances are she'll stay and take it until he kills either her or all of them and himself. We just saw it out in Utah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just see how that goes. Yep.
And then he wrote a letter blaming the wife. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but however, okay, when you introduce kids into that situation, what you're doing is not only prolonging the abuse that you're going to have to sit there and take, but you're also giving him another target. Okay.
Yeah.
It's unacceptable. You know what I mean? And I've told countless women, if you think that having a baby is going to fix this shit, I need to shake the shit out of you. All right. It's not going to fix it. It's going
make
to
it worse.
damage someone else.
Yeah. You just brought somebody up in that environment now.
Yeah, exactly. And it like I'm of the mindset that don't even bring a dog into your house, honey, because literally that's ammunition. Okay. That's all it is. He's going to destroy everything that you care about. No, let me rephrase. That abuser is going to destroy everything that you care about. Okay. That's what they do. They whittle you down to nothing because that's how they stay above you. Okay. So if you give them anything to use, if you give them anything to harm you with, that's exactly what they're going to do.